Right, as my voice continues to disappear down the toilet, let us head to Drew for some discussion on the French Dispatch.
Although less limiting than the idea of picking a single favourite film, picking a favourite film director is a similarly futile and pointless endeavour. That said, if, in some unlikely, difficult to imagine, and above all violent aesthetic appreciation scenario, where a gun was put to my head and I was forced to pick, Wes Anderson.
A violent aesthetic appreciation scenario.
Good concept album name, I think.
That was Zappa, wasn't it? Sorry, dude. I just wanted to take a moment out to appreciate where your mind had gone to there.
In said scenario, Wes Anderson would certainly be one of the names in the forefront of my mind. Well, forefront of my mind would, of course, be The Gun, but after that, if you'd like to hear Scott and I talk in depth about his oeuvre and our love for it, then please check out our dedicated episode from February 2019. Anderson, or as he's occasionally known around here, Lord Whimsy Whimsington III, is definitely not everyone's cup of tea. His very particular aesthetic and whimsical tone being something that, for a lot of people, is something you love or loathe. His films have always worked for me, though, and I enjoy the Anderson-style whimsy. With the French Dispatch, however, I fear that, operating as he is here at approximately 300% Wes Anderson, I have finally found the point of too much Wes Anderson. Things certainly don't begin well for anyone unenamoured of the director's stylings, with pretty much the first thing we see being the name of the fictional Belleville rendezvous recalling French city in which the film is set. Ennui sur Blasé, or in English, Boredom upon Apathy, which had my eyes rolling back in my skull. And remember, I like Wes Anderson. The French Dispatch, with a cast including Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Mathieu Amalric, Frances McDormand, Benicio del Toro, Timothée Chalamet, Tilda Swinton, Léa Seydoux and Jeffrey Wright. And in smaller roles, Jason Schwartzman, Saoirse Ronan, Bob Balaban, Christoph Waltz and, surprisingly, Fisher Stevens, who hasn't been retroactively cancelled for Short Circuit.
That's mental. I don't know that I've seen Fisher Stevens in anything since Short Circuit. Oh, damn.
The French Dispatch is actually 3 stories in one. Well, actually 3.5 stories plus added framing scenes. The conceit, that's an appropriate word here, is that the French Dispatch is a magazine, a supplement to the fictional Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun. Though what it actually is the New Yorker, very lightly disguised, run by Bill Murray's idiosyncratic editor, Arthur Howitzer Jr. When Howitzer dies, his will states that the magazine will cease publication after one final issue is produced, the articles of which comprise those 3.5 stories. First, we have a travelogue, in which Owen Wilson's Herbson Cesarac, on a bike, in a beret, it's like only a Mercedes doesn't have onions in a basket in the front, gives a flavour of the life in ennui, replete with corpse-filled river, pickpockets and roving gangs of choir boys. Following that is a tale of an incarcerated and insane artist, Moses Rosenthaler, whose work inspires a fellow inmate and art dealer, who, on his release, promotes Rosenthaler's work and makes him a global sensation, then gets pissed off and narky at the artist for not making any new work while in prison. The middle section, probably the weakest, sees a journalist get involved with the topic of her piece, a young political radical called Zeffirelli, who's trying to foment a rebellion. Despite this being clearly inspired by May 68, it is weirdly apolitical, despite being based on something very, very political. Here, I think it could be argued that Anderson's whimsy has finally gone too far, given its inspiration. Though this doesn't mean it's not enjoyable, just that its taste is questionable. The final story, the best, is a strange yet touchy amalgam in which a black gay American reporter, exiled to France for loving the wrong way, begins his story thinking that it's going to be about that great subgenre of gastronomy, police cuisine and its hero, the legendary police chef Nescaffier, and then sees it end with car chases, kidnappings and gangsters. The French Dispatch is every bit as artificial as any Wes Anderson film, but really every bit as funny, beautiful and delightful too. And infuriating. Wes Anderson's films tend to benefit from a repeat viewing, even those that are great first time around, and the second viewing can change how you feel about them completely. For example, while I didn't much care for Fantastic Mr. Fox the first time I watched it, I now love it, so I'll definitely watch The French Dispatch again. But it would certainly be asking a lot for an Anderson newcomer, or a hater, to commit to that. This is advanced level Wes Anderson, and only for the existing fans. I did enjoy The French Dispatch, but it exasperated me as much as it delighted me. And well, I'll leave the final words on this to another reviewer, Wendy Ide of The Guardian, who succinctly summed up how I felt about much of this when she wrote, "On a first viewing, I found it to be amongst the most punchable films I have ever seen." She's not wrong, but now I need to see it a second time.
Sadly, I've yet to see it a first time, so despite my love for the dude, I will get to it in time. No, I was looking forward to this. I'm sad that I didn't get to see it, but I'm sure I will rectify that in time. And we can revisit it at that point, perhaps.
I kind of blow hot and cold on Wes Anderson as the years have gone by. I haven't watched anything of his for a long time. I think Rushmore universally adored, right? I don't know anybody that dislikes Rushmore. I've got a real soft spot for Life Aquatic. But Tenenbaum's I bounce off a bit, but I don't know if that's just because Paltrow's in it.
Understandable, yeah. But to be fair, quite comfortably Gwyneth Paltrow's best performance at anything.
Yeah, as I recall, yeah, in my experience, quite possibly. But I'll get around to The French Dispatch at some point. I just don't know when.